There's a big misconception that you need a lot of land to grow a decent amount of food, but this simply isn't true. Even if you only have a square metre, it's amazing how much food you can produce. Now, in the first year of this garden, using what the common guidelines are for a portion of vegetables, it averaged 100 portions, just over 100 portions of food per square metre. Well, that is 10 portions per square foot. So I know what it takes to produce a lot of food in a small space. And by the way, that was not including the marrows. And so if you want to grow more food, it isn't about having a bigger garden, but actually doubling down and looking at the details of the smaller areas. And this is what this video is going to help you with. And I'm going to start with something that I've never shared before. A big shift for me to help me with planning my garden was, instead of thinking in plants, think in portion sizes. So in the last scene, I was in the polytunnel because it was raining, and it didn't stop raining until the early hours of this morning. So for continuity, I am wearing the same jumper and same trousers. So what I was saying was, instead of thinking in plants, think in portions. This is a kale plant. It is a younger kale plant, but a kale plant should give me around 12 portions over its lifespan. So it means if I have 4 kale plants, I can have kale twice a week for around 6 months. And if for me 1 portion of beetroot is 3 roots, then whenever I'm planting out a clump of multi-sown beetroot, I'm basically planting out a portion at a time. So 20 clumps of beetroot is 20 portions. And this is where the self-sufficiency formula comes in. It is a framework. See what I did there? Frame. Yeah, maybe not, but it's a framework that I designed to help you understand how to grow exactly what you eat in your garden, so you never get to a stage where, oh no, I've got way too many, or you're like, no, I wish I grew more beetroot. And so it works like this. The first thing that you want to do is just measure how much a portion is for you of a particular crop, and then kind of work out how many portions you might eat over a month or even over a year. And then the next step is to work out what a good solid average yield is of that crop per square metre. And then from that number, you can easily work out how many metres square of that crop that you need to grow to hit that target of however many portions you want to eat over a set period. And then it just comes to planting it. So you know, in a square metre, there's a certain amount of portions that's going to give you. Obviously, you need to know how many plants there are, but it's a little bit more realistic, and it is a much clearer way of laying out and designing your planting plan. Now, if you want the most practical version of this formula, and also all of the information such as yields per square metre, how many plants, what kind of spacings to look at, what varieties to grow, then you're going to love this, How to Grow Foods, the new book that I wrote with Sam, which shows you how to grow, cook and preserve. It is no nonsense, crop by crop guide, zero fluff, just about how to get real world results. And yeah, super excited. You can pre-order it down below, both in the UK and the US. But ultimately, this is just about giving you the framework which you can then adapt to suit your garden and your kitchen, because every single person's self-sufficiency journey is personal. So this is very much plug and play, get rid of the fluff and get amazing food from your garden. So back to just trying to get the most out of every square metre in your garden. The next tip is to just have living roots in the soil for as long as possible. Now, firstly, having living roots, which are roots attached to a plant in the soil for as long as possible, is brilliant for soil health. That's all you need to know. And secondly, by embracing the seasons and growing crops that suit maybe spring, and then you have different crops that suit summer, and then a whole different category for autumn, and again for winter, it means that you can work with the seasons to get multiple harvests from the same space. So take this bed, for example. Let's say I've just made this bed and it's the start of the growing season. Then what I could do is I could start off some radishes at the same time that I plant my potatoes. So I harvest the radishes, and then around late August, I'll then harvest my potatoes. I could transplant something like Chinese cabbage, and then I could harvest that kind of by the end of October, start of November, and then plant my garlic. Now, if I tally the average yields that I get for those crops together, it means that Firstly, I'll get around 3 kilos of radish roots, and then I could expect around 8 kilos of main crop potatoes, followed by 6 kilos of Chinese cabbage. So before the garlic has even gone in just under 8 months of growing, I have grown 17 kilos of food in this space without even including the radish tops. And that is what succession planting is. As soon as you remove something from your bed, you put something in straight away just to maximize what you can get from that space. So that bed example that I gave with the radish and the Chinese cabbage and the potatoes, guess how many portions 17 kilos is? It's 210, just over 210 portions from a square metre of growing space. So that just speaks for itself. So with all of this food that you're producing, it then begs the question, what do you do about compost? And there's a big misconception that compost in equals food out. And it is just ridiculous to think that you should be putting on, like 17 kilos of compost onto your square metre to make up for the 17 kilos of food that is given you. What you need to remember is that the majority of a plant, depending on the plant, is around 70 to 80% of its weight is water weight. And then of its dry weight, a significant majority of that is carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So just a really good rule of thumb to begin with is just add at least 2 centimetres of compost per year, ideally end of winter, start of spring. And if you don't have enough compost, then all you can do is put a handful of compost at the base of the planting hole and just supplement your plants with things like homemade comfrey feed. Now, it goes without saying, just grow the things that you enjoy eating. It is something that I often have to remind myself. It's all well and good growing 7 kilos of radish, like winter radish or something, but are you actually going to eat that? It doesn't count until it's in your belly. So just think to yourself, are you really excited about eating it? And if you're not, then maybe don't bother growing it. Now, I want to give you something really practical that you can take straight away and you can start designing it or implementing it into your plans for next year, and that is to give you 11 productive crops. It's not the absolute list of the most productive ones, but 11 really good starting point using the data from How to Grow Food based on planting distances and the average yield that you could aim for per square metre. Tomatoes and cucumbers, 12 kilos. Onions, 10 kilos per square metre plus the edible tops. Leeks, around 8 kilos. Potatoes, around 8 kilos, often more per square metre for main crops. Carrots, around 8 kilos per square metre plus edible tops. Parsnips as well, around 8 kilos. Chinese cabbage, 6 to 8 kilos. Beetroot, 6 kilos plus edible leaves. Courgettes, around 6 kilos. And cabbage, around 6 kilos. Back into here. So if you start your garden plan by kind of plotting these out, that is when you can fill in all of the other plants to do succession planting. So here before I had a courgette and then I planted out this 4-hook giant chard, and it's just a very simple way of putting out your staples or your absolute favourites, knowing how much time they're going to occupy, which is in the book, and then being able to work around that to fill in all of the gaps. That is how you get to these really high yields per square metre. The square metre, it's a significant amount of space. It can make a massive impact, and Sam and I chose to work with this in our book because yes, you can multiply it, but you can also cut it in half or turn it into a quarter. When it comes to self-sufficiency, growing food, using the produce in your kitchen, there's a lot of noise out there. We didn't write this to add to the noise, we wrote it to just cut through it. It's just clear, practical structure that you can follow and adapt to your own garden, because as I said before, we're all on our own personal self-sufficiency journey. So this is here to help you. It's not here to be your boss, it's here to make your dreams and your goals possible.